Right, let's go ahead and turn this waistcoat now into our desired shape. Okay, so what I meant by that was, can you see how this is definitely leant over to one side? Okay, so which is why I didn't want to do the collar part yet, because it's going to be reliant on the overall shape. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of pseudo fake some of this. That's going to be folded over and whatnot. So, okay, let's go ahead and say down here we need to create a split. Okay, so we'll split it. Where is that going to be? We can actually mark it on her torso. So around about there might be a good, maybe a bit lower in fact, looking at the reference, something like that. So we'll split it about there, and it will of course split the other side. Okay. And there we go. Now let's go back to our sewing, and we're just going to delete this sewing all the way down that length. Then we're just going to sew these two pieces together, and what that's going to do is it will split open that part there. Okay, obviously this is not ideal, it's not what we want. Okay, and you can see that it is very tight as well. So let's, for now, it might help a little bit, not a huge deal, if we set the material to something quite unstretchy, like leather or something like that. Okay, just to kind of help it a little bit. And like we've done before, we'll increase the friction as well, just so that it's not flying all over the place. We can work with it a little bit more easily. Okay, so we need to kind of fold this over, but we haven't really got a pattern for that yet. So what are we going to do? Well, for this one here, I'm actually just going to move that out the way and bring this point a little bit further forward. Now you see, if I do that, it does that same thing for the other side. So we actually have to disable linked editing now. Okay, I think for the back we can keep linked editing on, but here we'd have to delete it. I think remove linked editing, so that we can now make changes to only one side of the garment. And this does come across quite a bit. We'll exaggerate it for now, just to give us a bit of help. Okay, and what I'm going to do, we can simulate it again, but we're going to get roughly the same effect. We want to kind of pin that almost over there. Okay, but you can see it's very hard because it's still rather tight across her chest there. So let's make our lines a little bit easier. We'll make this a little bit bigger. Hold down shift as you increase the size, and hopefully the size increase will give us a bit more, well, give her a bit more breathing room. Okay, it won't make it so tight. Okay, we want to kind of make sure we pin that corner there, so we can get an idea for what it is we're trying to achieve. Okay, so the way we can do that is we can click on this one. Yep, click and hold, tack on avatar, and we'll tack that point there to just somewhere over here. Okay, so you can't do this with a real model because it will hurt them. You know, sticking pins in a human body generally is not advised. I'm just going to stick one there, and I'll just stick one here too. Okay, and when we hit simulate, that should now do its best to stay over on that side. It's under a huge amount of tension, as you can see there, but that will just help us get our shape right and ready for the next part. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're basically going to do the same thing to this side. We're going to get this point over, so let's make that quite a bit more like that. Okay, let's just curve that in a little bit, but I do want to create an internal seam line here, so let's go ahead and do an internal polygon line, and then we'll double click to finish it off. And there we go. Okay, so this should be our fold line essentially. So if we click on that line and we fold it over, there you go. It can be a bit tricky sometimes, depending upon your camera angle. Okay, now what we're going to do is we want to kind of bring that pin over here and kind of fasten it up a little bit. Okay, so let's do a pin there. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and you can see it's very, very basic looking, but we're basically getting that idea of how the vest folds in over on itself. Okay, obviously we can't leave it like this. This is not the best way to do it. So what's a better way of doing it then? Well, let's get rid of the poor pins. Okay, I just wanted to show you that there in terms of how to do it. So we'll select these pins, we'll delete each one of them, And that internal line now, we're going to kind of cheat a little bit, and we're going to use that. But actually, having said that, this is a little bit of a sneaky trick, but I'm going to split this internal line just slightly. Just slightly. Let's go 30 millimeters. Okay. And you probably already guessed what I'm going to do here, but I'm going to sew this line to that internal line there. So it's going to finally bring them back together again. Okay. Because if you look at the vest here, do you see how that goes underneath lower than the fold over? And that's what I'm trying to produce here. Okay, so if we go ahead and hit spacebar or simulate, we've got that effect there essentially. We can't see it very well because the material's got an element of transparency applied to it, but there you go. Okay, right. So the fold over obviously is not brilliant. We do have to address the fold over, and you can see as soon as we start to play around with the vest, it will just naturally go back. So we do have to be quite strong with this, and we have to tell it to fold over quite a degree. Fold strength, we can whop that up quite a bit so it stays. Okay, let's hit spacebar. There we go. Okay, so we've got the basic idea in there, and I know I say basic a lot, I know, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so the next part here is to create this collar. Now if we look at the reference again, the collar kind of starts here. It looks asymmetrical. Looks like the collar starts there and starts there. So we need to mark that location here on this side. You can see that's where it is there. Okay, even though it looks like it would go all the way. It looks like it suggested that the collar starts going high from here, but I'm not sure if that's going to look too good. So I'm going to start the collar a little bit further up the edge here. So if I click, let's say around there, and we'll split it there, and we'll round the number up, we'll round it down to 90. That's a good number. Okay, give that time to think. Fabulous. Let's put this out the way, and we'll do another split here as well, just above that line, and then we'll round that to 85. There we go. So we have to create a collar that's 85 plus 90. So 90 plus 90 is 180. Take 5 away is 175. So let's go ahead and we'll create a collar that's about 175 plus the back. Let's not forget the back this time. So 60 plus 60, 120. 175 plus 120, that's 295. So let's create one that's 295 long, and we'll just go for something simple like 20 mil in height. Okay, there we go. That looks a little bit small, but that should be okay. Let's give it a go. Maybe we make it a bit taller. Okay, fabulous. Right, so the back wants to be in the middle, okay, because what we're going to do, if we do our arrangement points, we usually wrap the center of this kind of part around the back of the head, so the 60 either side should be in the middle here. So let's count from this edge here, because that's going to be this line. This is 120 long, so let's split that. 120, okay, and then this line length here is 114. Split that. 114. I feel like my math is going to come crashing down any minute now, and I can see it already. I thought I had it there. I thought I had it, but no, I did not. 114 plus 120. What is that? That is 230. Yeah, that's why it's wrong, guys, because my brain is ceased to function. I was counting the smaller parts, so there you go. Of course, being daft, sorry, maths wasn't my major at all. So let's see, that was 115 plus 120. Let's round it up to 120. 240 minus 5, that's 235 plus 60 this time. So 235 plus 120, that's 355. I guess. Let's try that again. Sorry, guys. Right. Now, let's try and split it again. So, just for comparison's sake, we're going to wrap it around that way. Okay, so if we mark this blue point there, that's going to stitch down here. So that length is 120. So we'll split it 120 from that rightmost edge. And then this length here is 114, so for this edge we'll split it to 114, and now this should just divide in two. Let's see if it works out. 50% gives us 60. Yes, I mathed somewhat correctly, guys. Kind of proud of myself, actually. Right, okay, so obscenely horrible math behind us now. I do apologize for that. Yeah, some of you are probably doing this tutorial and going, my goodness, this guy is not good at maths, and you'd be absolutely right. I'm not good at it at all. Okay, where's my cursor gone? Can I not get my gizmo back? No? Gizmo? No? Well, okay then, never mind. We can do stitching without it. I don't know what's going on there. So 120, stitch to there. There we go. And then now this side, stitches 2. You can use your 3D view to help you out. There you go. That side, stitch to that side. And as always, make sure your lines are not crisscrossed. And that stitch to there. Okay, now it is going to flop, obviously. That's normal. We do want it to stand up tall. Oh, it didn't flop that much. Okay, that's cool. So what we can actually do with this particular piece here is we can actually apply that pressure I was talking about before, where it just kind of seems to stand of its own free will and volition. Okay, that's fine like that as well. Okay, so that's okay. We've got a collar somewhat there like that. Now I've got to create that really nice dynamic fold over now, which is huge. And of course that's drawn a bit stylized, so we're going to have to be a bit more realistic perhaps about our collar, but maybe not too realistic, because the style is very appealing. So we've got this very much the point at either end here. If we construct this, put this somewhere in the middle so you can see what we're doing, maybe we could bring it up a little bit. I'm using the squares to help me. Bring that point up to there, bring that point up to there, and we do need to kind of we do need to curve some edges here. I'm just trying to figure out what edges those would be, and we'll do it in a minute. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll arrange that behind the back of our head as well. Okay, we want this to fold over. It looks pretty big at the moment. It's probably too big actually. Let's reduce it. Okay. And the nice thing about the collar is that you just have a single stitch like that. Okay, right, let's hit spacebar, see what it does. Looks like something from like a Fifth Element movie or something like that. I mean, it's not bad. If you're doing some cyberpunk character, I mean, that would be probably quite good, probably fit in quite well, but we're not doing a cyberpunk character. So let's get that fold, and we want to be pretty strong about it, so let's bring it up pretty high. And we want to fold it back over on itself, then simulate. Okay, so you can see that that is a bit too big after all. In fact, it's gigantic. It looks like a hood now. So we do actually need to get this collar underneath to remain pretty stiff and rigid. Okay, but hopefully you can kind of see what I'm trying to do here now, and you are following on along a little bit with similar levels of success. Okay. But it's all banking on the fact that that collar has to be stiff, but we can see that it is actually too big in its current state and form, so we can just reduce that a little bit. Well, obviously it's going to be bigger on the edges, it's going to be a bit smaller in the middle, so we can use the curve tool to help us achieve that effect as well. Okay, so let's let Marvelous Designer have some time to catch up. MD? No? Oh, no, it wasn't. I was waiting on me. Okay. Right, there we go. Okay, so it's starting to look a little bit more like a collar that we'd typically see. Well, I say typically, but I've never seen a collar this big outside of fantasy things. Okay, we need to basically get that fold to behave itself. This part here needs to remain pretty rigid. Okay, and we'll look at doing that in the next video, but hopefully you can see now the type of effect that we're going to do and go for. Now, the only other thing I want to do before we close this out is get these points down here asymmetrical. Now, I'm just happy to have the front part here asymmetrical. The back I'm not really bothered about. So all we're going to do there is quite a simple operation. we'll just go over to our edit pattern tool, figure out where that point is. There's that point there, and you can just pull it down. Now again, it's up to you how much you commit to that style. Okay, it's entirely up to you. I'm going to commit to it quite heavily because I like that element of the design, but of course, as you're building your character along with me, it's entirely up to you how much you want to commit to it. Okay, and I think I'll do the same almost for the other side, just a tiny bit more, just to kind of emphasize the sharpness. In fact, what I might do is I might spread it out a bit, bring it a bit over there, so it looks like it's what do you call it? Is it kind of, is it splayed out? It's a bit kind of, it's a bit, oh no, don't want to do that. Let's hit simulate. Yeah, so it's a bit kind of out here somewhere. It's a bit, no, it's a bit too similar, so I've got to go back to this side and commit to this pull a bit more. It's a shame how Marvel's designer sometimes just doesn't want to drag multiple dots at the same time. It can do, it just often doesn't want to. There we go. Okay, right. So again, it's very basic, guys. I know I say that a lot, but it's important to get the foundational style set first before we do anything. I also just noticed that I don't want this to be so close to her arms. That's really quite close there, so I do want to do a last few tweaks. I think I will go back to my curve tool and just reduce the curvature on that, because that is, yeah, it's a bit too, it's a bit too round here. I want it a bit more flat and straight, so I might have to pull that in a bit there like that, but also bring the edge forward a bit. But in so doing, I'm going to run the risk of, yeah, I mean that's right there, but this edge won't be so right anymore, because that is now 76, that's 59, so I'll probably have to curve this round a bit more. And they're not linked anymore, so that's an unfortunate thing there. Okay, let's hit spacebar. And again, I'm not going to be too 100% accurate with the numbers, just going for the general gist here. Okay, right, so let's bring that a bit lower. Okay. And we'll just bring this, the overall underarm bits here lower as well, because that's quite high. So what happens if we bring, we'll select the points at the same time. Let's bring a bit lower in line with a bit more with the back part there. See what that does for us. Yeah, already that's a bit better, because it should be clear it's a vest. It's not another piece of clothing, so it should hang quite low under her armpit there. And yeah, there you go. Okay, okay. If you wanted to make it look a little bit chunky, so it's got some thickness to it, you can come down here to thickness, and we'll just bump that up to something insane like 3mm. Now that's the simulation, but if you want it to appear a bit more thick, you can see there Marvel's Design's going, oh wow, it's pretty thick. Let me just think about that a little bit. Right, so that's that. It took a while, but there you go. Okay, and if you want to create the visual thickness, we just simply have to select the actual pieces, and we'll go to additional thickness here under rendering, and you can type in a value of 3 there. I recommend if you're changing any of this, whatever you do, don't hit simulate. Okay, I've had it, I should have mentioned before, I have had it just kind of basically almost crash, just cycling through itself. Okay, once you've changed the thickness, you can then hit simulate, and that's a much better and safer way to do it, because sometimes Marvel's Designer can just infinitely do a simulation loop, so be careful with that. Okay, right, I'll leave the video here for now. Oh, that's very tight. It's even splitting apart the seams, so we'll have to address that later on. Okay, but that's fine, we'll fix all that later. Okay, but hopefully you can see the vest coming together now. We do have a lot of tweaking left to do, but we'll go ahead and do that in the next video.